Okay. Today we are going to get to our video on gun control in the inner city. How gun control affects the inner city and shit like that. Can you see me real good?
Hold on one second.
Okay. And this is going to be about how gun control affects the inner city. Now, what is the inner city? The inner city that I am aware of may be different than the inner city you're aware of. The inner cities that I'm aware of have one of four characteristics. Minorities are the majority, okay? Minority in America means anybody that is not a white Christian man is a minority. Children are minorities, women are minorities, Jews are minorities, Muslims are minorities, Hispanics are minorities, Asians are minorities, Native Americans are minorities, okay? Homosexuals are minorities. You can dice up minority as any way you want, okay? So the inner city means one of four things. It could be more, but it's one of four things. First and foremost, the majority of the inhabitants are from a minority group. Second, it can be a high crime area. Third, it can be an area of high poverty. You don't see lawyers and doctors living in the inner city. And fourth, one of those three things. Now, your inner city might be totally... and the inner city is normally fourth. The inner city is normally inhabited by large apartment buildings. 20-story apartment buildings that are mostly owned by the government. Housing projects. Now, your inner city might be totally different. Your inner city might be inhabited by people that have houses. The houses might be very, very shitty. Your inner city might be inhabited by trailer parks. Your inner city might be totally different than my inner city. Your inner city might be full of white people. Your inner city might be full of Hispanic people. Your inner city might be full of Native American people. Your inner city might be full of Asian people. Okay? And before anybody calls me a racist, Democrats, I took a sociology class a few years ago, and we learned that the number one people on government assistance, welfare, food stamps are white people. There are more white people in America today on government assistance than every other racial group you can think of put together. So think about that before you call me a racist or say this is about race. It's not about race this time. Last time was about race, this time is about inner cities. There are black people that live in 5-bedroom houses in the suburbs. There are white people that live in crammed-in apartment complexes in the ghetto. Congressman Joe Walsh was on the O'Reilly Factor a few weeks ago. Congressman Joe Walsh is a Republican who is a congressman from Illinois, and part of his district is Chicago. Yes. Dragons and leprechauns cannot believe that a Republican congressman has territory in Chicago. Anyway, he said on the O'Reilly Factor that he would like to bring forth a carry conceal law. Now, Congress writes federal laws, the state legislature writes the state laws, but congressmen have power. They can have political influence, they can sign petitions, they can have meetings, they can play golf with the state senator and tell the state senator to vote on a carry conceal law, He wants Illinois to adopt the carry conceal license law, and he wants to give gun owners, legal gun owners in Illinois a little more power, have more Second Amendment protection. And the Brady campaign said they were afraid that his comments would be misinterpreted as let's rebel against the state. Okay? And the Brady campaign is deathly afraid that gun owners are going to hear Congressman Walsh and misinterpret that as let's take up arms against the state. As opposed to when someone might misinterpret David Axelrod saying, quote, kill Romney. Now, my question is, God forbid, you don't want a revolution in this country. Revolutionary War was bad, Civil War was worse. You do not want an armed revolution in this country. Women and children will die, it's a horrible thing. But, let's assume, God forbid, the people of Illinois rebelled against the state, which I would not condone. Would it be more violent than what's going on under the law in Illinois? Okay? And the Brady campaign was very, very concerned about Congressman Walsh's statements. It should be immediately noted that the Brady campaign has not said one fucking word about the minority on minority violence in Chicago. The Brady campaign has never said one fucking word about the 46 shootings that happened over a single weekend in Chicago. The Brady campaign did not say one word about the gangbanger with the fucking machine gun that killed a baby by firing wildly into a house. But the Brady campaign was concerned that Congressman Walsh's statements would lead to violence. The Brady campaign ranks the states high and low based on how much gun control the state has over the citizenry, not how much violence there is. You could have southern states like out in the Midwest or out in the Southwest that have literally a 0 rating from the Brady campaign for no gun laws. They have no magazine ban, no weapons accessory ban, shall issue carry conceal law, blah 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 blah, allow people to carry guns in the open, blah 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 blah. They get a 0 from the Brady campaign. And that must be a badge of honor to them. The Brady campaign would not look at the crime in these states. You might have a state, I'm just making this up. You might have a state where everyone is allowed to have open carry. You might have and campus carry. Thank you, clock. And no magazine capacity ban, no weapons accessory ban, no gun registration. And there could be 20 murders a year in that entire fucking state. The Brady campaign would give that state a 0. On the other hand, you could have a state, Illinois, where gun registration, magazine capacity ban in some cities, weapons accessory ban, this and that ban, 10-20 day waiting period. Illinois, you have to get a permission slip from the state in order to buy a gun. This ban, this law, that law. And there could be 1,000 fucking murders a month in the state. Brady campaign would give that state an A+ or 100. That weekend there were 46 shootings in Illinois. You know where the Brady campaign was? In Florida. Why were they in Florida? Because a half Hispanic, half white man shot a black man. So the Brady campaign went to Florida. They literally rented space on a fucking billboard over a highway, and they put up a billboard sign warning the tourists, the citizens of Florida can kill you. You know, stand your ground law, shoot first law, make my day law. Florida is a hotbed for tourism. Orlando alone has Disney World, SeaWorld, Universal Studios. So a lot of tourists go to Florida. The Brady campaign wanted to put up a sign that said, you know, Florida people can shoot you dead if they think you're threatening them or something. They wanted to hurt Florida's business. Why don't you put up a fucking sign in Chicago to say, hey, Brady campaign to prevent gun violence. Warning, Chicago is the most violent city in America. Yeah. There have been more Americans murdered in Chicago since 2001 than the entire country of Afghanistan since 2001. So if you have a relative living in Chicago, you have a relative deployed to Afghanistan, the relative that is deployed to Afghanistan has a mathematical better chance at coming home alive than the relative that lives in Chicago. Remember Mogadishu, Somalia, Black Hawk Down? Okay. Chicago is very soon going to pass Mogadishu as the most violent city in the fucking world. Where's the Brady campaign? In Florida, worrying about Trayvon Martin, worrying about George Zimmerman, scaring the shit out of fucking tourists. Let me tell you something right now. I would rather be unarmed in the worst part of the worst city of Florida than be armed in Chicago. Dead serious. There was a boy in my hometown. The boy's name will never be revealed in this channel. He was 9 years old. He went down to North Carolina to visit his godmother. My friend from high school was his teacher's aide, so she knows him, I don't. This boy was in his home, was in a home in North Carolina visiting his godmother. A 24-year-old man who was a convicted felon appeared outside the house. And that man, for some reason, thought that his enemy was in the house. You know where this is going. His enemy ended up being down the street or something. This man, 24 years old, convicted felon, whips out a fucking gun, fires wildly into the house, and a stray bullet hits and kills a 9-year-old boy from my hometown. Where's the Brady campaign? Where's Al Sharpton? Where's Jesse Jackson? Where's Louis Farrakhan? Where are the Black Panthers? Where's the Emperor Bloomberg? Okay? Where's the mayor of Chicago? Where's he who must not be named? Nowhere. Here's what happened. The boy was black. The man who killed him was black. There is no political reason for an anti-gun politician or an anti-gun advocate or a race-mongering son of a bitch to hype things up when a minority kills a minority. Black person killing black person, Hispanic person killing Hispanic person, Jewish person killing Jewish person, Muslim person killing Muslim person, gay person killing gay person, woman killing woman. They cannot exploit that. They can only exploit it when it's a white person killing a black person. That's the only time they can exploit things. They can't exploit anything else. So they were all worried about Trayvon Martin down in Florida. Let's talk about DC. DC is constantly in competition with New York City to see who can become the worst gun control city in the world. DC, prior to 2008, said no handgun registration past 1976, which meant if you lived in DC in the 70s and you had a handgun registered, you could keep it. But aside from that, you could not have a handgun registered after 1976, the bicentennial. So they really want a lot of registered handguns in DC. Police officer can have their duty gun. Okay, also, long guns. The long gun catalog in DC is very, very limited. I don't know a lot about it, but I know it's limited. If you had a long gun, it had to be field stripped and unloaded or trigger locked. It had to be somehow disabled. And I saw the penal code. And the penal code literally said, the gun must be disabled so that you cannot use it for defense. You cannot use your gun for defense. Now, Washington, D.C. Half of Washington, D.C. is politicians. The other half is citizens. Politicians all have their own bodyguards. Some federal buildings have their own police department. It's a small police department, but it's a police department. Okay? The White House has uniformed Secret Service agents that do perimeter control and plainclothes agents that do close quarter protection. Also, here's the thing. Washington, D.C., no stand your ground law, period. No Castle Doctrine, period. Then or now. Then or now. Period. Nothing. Now, police officers are never bound by a stand your ground or Castle Doctrine. Every police officer in the country operates on a stand your ground principle. Also, politician bodyguards have a very, very, very simple philosophy. Kill you. If you threaten a politician, they will kill you. They will not ask you questions. They will not stop you. They will kill you. They will shoot you dead and kill you, and the law will protect them. Also, Washington, D.C. then and now does not allow any citizen to carry a firearm on their person ever, no matter what. Politicians' bodyguards always have carry concealed. Politicians' bodyguards allowed to carry guns open. People in D.C. cannot buy MP5s and AR-15s. Politicians' bodyguards can buy AR-15s, MP5s, full auto MP5s, full auto M16s. Remember the Reagan shooting? One of his Secret Service agents had an Uzi under his coat, and he literally whipped out a fucking Uzi and started controlling the perimeter. So if you're a criminal in Washington, D.C., prior to 2008, you know that the citizenry, assuming they have a weapon, it's disabled and they're legally not allowed to use it. Other part of D.C., politicians, bodyguards. If you go anywhere near their property, the White House, the Capitol, wherever they live, wherever they stay, hotels, wherever they are, their politicians' bodyguards all have firearms, period. They are legally allowed to shoot you dead, no questions asked, period. They have standard capacity magazines, high capacity magazines, period. Full auto weapons, period. Military training, law enforcement training, period. So if you're a criminal in Washington, D.C., who are you going to find a better target? Would you rather break into the White House to steal a fucking DVD player? Or would you rather break into Joe's house? That's what criminals do. Criminals have a fucking calculator in their fucking brain every day. They think risk versus reward, risk versus reward. The DVD player in the White House costs more money than the DVD player in Joe's house. But if I break into the White House to get the DVD player, I have to climb a fence, cross over a lawn with a fucking sniper on the roof, break into the window, steal the DVD player, get out of the window, run back across the lawn without getting shot by the sniper, climb back over the fence. Here's the issue. If a Secret Service agent is in the White House and he sees you coming in or out of a window, something in your hand, he automatically assumes it's a bomb. He automatically shoots you. No question. And even if he does get in trouble for it, you're still fucking dead. So they go after Joe. Because Joe has no gun, no this, no that. Joe's defenses. Go after Joe. And why you rather beat the shit out of Joe? Pistol whipman shit. After the Heller versus DC decision, the good news is DC residents are no longer allowed to have their guns locked up. Required to have their guns locked up, I should say. They are allowed to have handguns. But they're only allowed to have a 10-round magazine. So if they break into Joe's house, Joe has a 10-round magazine in his gun. No high-capacity magazine, no pre-band magazine. But if they break into the White House, Agent Joe Smith has SIG P229 with a 12-round mag, plus one in the chamber, plus two other 12-round mags, plus a full auto MP5, plus there's a guy on the roof with a fucking rifle, plus there's 10 other agents running around with MP5s, plus a couple of guys got AR-15s. Okay, so even today, they'd rather go after Joe. Catch people on the street in D.C. Joe is walking down the street in D.C. He has no weapon. The congressman is walking down the street. He doesn't have a weapon, but his bodyguards do. They'll go after Joe. Now, where are the D.C. politicians when this is going on? The city politicians that control D.C. city, not the federal government. More gun laws, more this and that law, create a panic, start fear-mongering, this and that. There was an Army officer stopped at Walter Reed Medical Center for a doctor's appointment on his way home to South Carolina. He had guns unloaded, locked in his trunk. What does DC police do? Arrest him. What happens? He had to get charges dropped. Congress had to order DC Metro to give the guns back. How does bothering a military officer transporting unloaded guns in the trunk of his car protect people in DC from getting shot, stabbed, raped, murdered, kidnapped? It doesn't. It doesn't. Chicago. 2 years after the Supreme Court said, allow the DC citizens to own handguns. Several cities in Illinois, Chicago being among them, in 2008 refused to abolish their own handgun bans. A gentleman named McDonald went to the Supreme Court in 2010 and said, 2 years ago, you allowed the citizens of DC to buy handguns for home defense. I want you to do that now for Chicago. And they did. The mayor of Chicago, what does the mayor of Chicago do? The mayor of Chicago originally said, city law trumps federal law, we're not going to comply. But then he said, okay, you can have a handgun if you can buy $1 million insurance policy. You can only have one handgun. And then he just shut the fuck up. Now, the mayor of Chicago said the 5 conservative justices of the Supreme Court said yes, law-abiding, yes, that's the word, law-abiding citizens in Chicago have a right to buy handguns and use them as home defense weapons. The mayor of Chicago originally said, now there's going to be blood in the streets. It's going to be like the Wild West again. People are going to be killing each other in the street. Well, Chicago is the most violent city in America. And 2012, 2 years later, Chicago is ready to be the most violent city in the world. So my question is, you're the mayor of Chicago. You go up nuts about violence and blood in the street when 5 Supreme Court justices tell the citizens that they can buy handguns. Where were you when gangbangers were killing each other in the street in Chicago? Where were you with minority and minority violence in Chicago? Okay? There are 3 times as many murders in Chicago as New York City. Where was the mayor of Chicago when that was going on? Nowhere. But the minute 5 Supreme Court justices say, let them buy handguns, panic. Okay. That's right, panic. The Second Amendment Foundation has another law in effect. Winbigler versus WCHA. This is the county in Illinois. This county in Illinois has a policy. No one that lives in public housing. Public housing means the government owns your apartment building and you live there. If you can afford to pay some money, you pay some money. The government provides the rest. If you can't afford to pay anything, you live there on welfare food stamps entirely. The county said, you live in public housing, you may not own a firearm at all. And the Second Amendment Foundation is suing to get that abolished. Yeah, the Second Amendment Foundation is trying to fight to give law-abiding citizens that live in public housing and bad neighborhoods the right to own a firearm for home defense. Now, these city and county officials love to brag about how safe their city is. We do not allow anyone in this public housing project area to own a gun, period. We have strict anti-gun policies in this neighborhood, period. And they say this publicly. And the criminals listen. Now, the criminals know for a fact that it is illegal for any citizen living in this housing project to own a firearm, period. Even if they're a law-abiding citizen and even if they swear under oath to obey all gun laws, period. The other part of town, 5-bedroom houses, a lot of jewelry, a lot of money. Problem is, gated community, sophisticated alarm system, surveillance cameras that see in the dark, and the homeowner has a fucking arsenal of guns. Where is the bad guy going to go to commit a home invasion? Home invaders don't want money. They want blood. They want to rape and murder and kidnap and torture. They don't care about money. Some men aren't looking for anything logical like money. They can't be bought, bullied, reasoned, and negotiated with. Some men just want to watch the world burn. So, this guy can go into, these guys can go into a 5-bedroom house in a gated community and rape some guy's wife, but doors are dead bolted, surveillance cameras everywhere, alarm system everywhere, and the guy has a collection of firearms to shoot and kill them with. This woman in the ghetto, in the public housing project, she has a couple of kids, no husband, no boyfriend, and the law forbids her to own a gun. Who are the 5 rapist home invaders going to target? Do you think these politicians, senators, governors, mayors, councilmen, presidents, do you think they care about these fucking people? They care that on Tuesday in November they can vote? That's it. You could live in Chicago. A gangbanger could fucking shoot you in the head on your way to the poll. The mayor could see this. The only thing the mayor's gonna do is pick up your body, drag you into the polling place, sign your name in, pick up your hand, and have your lifeless hand hit the fucking button. That's all. Then he'll throw your body out into the fucking dump. He doesn't care about you. Now, what do the anti-gun politicians do? Keeping in mind, there are anti-gun Republicans and there are pro-gun Democrats. My city has a pro-gun Democrat mayor. My city is on its 3rd pro-gun mayor in a row, at least. There are anti-gun mayors that are Republican all over the fucking place. There are pro-gun governors and presidents that are Democrat. I go down south, I'll see Democratic mayors walking around open carry 45s. But where are the anti-gun politicians? What do? I said this in a video about a year ago. What do? They wait for some kid to get shot. They go out and they say, let's control guns. Let's fight the NRA. Let's fight the Second Amendment Foundation. Hey, buddy, the Second Amendment Foundation has filed a lawsuit against you to allow law-abiding citizens in the housing projects to have a home defense gun. So when this son of a bitch comes in the door, they can shoot him and defend themselves. Okay? You are saying you want to fight the NRA, you want to fight the Second Amendment Foundation. Well, you know what the problem is? Criminal syndicates, street gangs, drug dealers, robbers, rapists, murderers, if they have a lawyer, their lawyer is to help get them off of criminal charges. Okay? They're not going to go to court and sue to get a gun. Okay? Also, when was the last time you saw a guy with a bumper sticker that said, support your local gangbang? Lifelong member of the Bloods. When was the last time you saw a fucking mayor walking around with a sign that said, my campaign was endorsed by the Ku Klux Klan? Well, down south you might see that in the 50s, but not now. But, so the politicians are like, fight the gun lobby, fight this, help the Brady campaign. Brady campaign, anti-gun politician, anti-gun celebrity. The triangle of money. They scratch each other's back, they give each other money, they go back and forth. Okay? The Brady campaign will list California and Illinois as the safest and best cities, best states in the country. Not because they have low crime, because they have strict gun control. According to the Brady campaign, Chicago is safer than Houston. Because Chicago has a lot of gun control, Houston probably not as much. Where would you rather be? Houston or Chicago? Okay? Anti-gun politicians were all over George Zimmerman because he was a legal gun owner. Yet, if a fucking gangbanger whipped out a fully automatic AK-47, ran into a minority neighborhood, ran into a poor neighborhood, where the fuck were the anti-gun lobby then? Nowhere. The anti-gun lobby is nowhere to be seen when a gun criminal commits a gun offense. Now, the elitist politicians, all the anti-gun politicians, Republican and Democrat, they don't live in the bad neighborhood. They live in the suburbs. They have bodyguards 24 hours a day. Depending on how high up they are, they may have bodyguards around their home 24 hours a day. They ride around in bulletproof limousines. And they say, more gun laws work. If an assassin comes after me, my bodyguards will shoot the assassin with their gun. The taxpayer-funded gun, taxpayer-funded bodyguard, taxpayer-funded bulletproof limousine. Gun control works. They get out of the limousine, all their bodyguards surround them. You get too close to them, bodyguard shoots you. Bodyguard has a concealed carry license, no matter where they are. Illinois. Illinois is no issue. But if you're a police officer, politician's bodyguard, you have a carry concealed license in Illinois. Okay? Now, he who must not be named was upset that the 5 conservative justices gave the people of D.C. the right to own a handgun for home defense. He who must not be named said, abolish every carry concealed license in the country. Disallow any American citizen owning a handgun. Ban all military-style weapons. Ban all semi-automatic rifles and shotguns. All rifles and shotguns will be both pump or lever, no automatic. He publicly said that the inner cities should have a right to forbid anyone living in the inner city from owning a gun at all, period. Like in the housing project in Illinois. He who must not be named has a house in Chicago. That's his hometown. His house is in the suburbs. You didn't know it right now, but right now there are Secret Service agents outside his Chicago home, protecting it. When you go on vacation, you live in Chicago, you go on vacation, does the Secret Service protect your home? The Secret Service surrounds his home 24 hours a day. His home in Chicago, his home in D.C. Sniper rifles, fully automatic weapons, handguns, bulletproof vest, perimeter checks, sensors, cameras to see in the dark. They got all that shit at our expense. He rides around in a bomb-proof limousine. That beast, that presidential limo, the Secret Service said publicly it's bomb-proof. They also said it's gas-proof. So if you're sitting in that limousine and someone sets off a gas bomb, the gas will not leak into that limousine. That is the strongest limousine ever built in all of human history. And in 2013, when he goes back to Chicago to live forever, he has Secret Service agents surrounding his house 24 hours a day, period. When he walks out his door, he has Secret Service agents that surround him and shield him with their bodies. He rides around in a bulletproof, bomb-proof, everything gas-proof limousine. And he says that the people that voted for him and the people that got him elected shouldn't have a carry concealed license, shouldn't have a handgun, shouldn't have a semi-automatic rifle, shouldn't have a semi-automatic shotgun, shouldn't have a right to use a gun to defend himself from a criminal. And the people living in the inner cities who unanimously voted for him shouldn't own guns at all. I'm going to close with one thing. 2 things actually. Second, there was a law a few years ago, federal proposal. Should we increase the penalties for criminals that use guns to commit crime? No weapon accessory ban, no magazine capacity ban, no ban on self-defense, no ban on hollow point bullets, no. Should we make stricter gun laws for criminals? Should we have harsher penalties for criminals that use guns to commit crime? Period. All the anti-gun politicians voted no, including he who must not be named and crazy Joe Biden. all of the pro-gun politicians, like Rick Santorum, for instance, voted yes. So, the pro-gun, pro-Second Amendment politicians said yes, pass harsher laws to punish criminals that use guns to commit crime. Do that. The anti-gun politicians that get rated A from the Brady campaign, get money from the Brady campaign, have the Brady campaign declare their cities and states as safe, voted no. You should not make it harsher for criminals to use guns to commit crime. That's clear cut to me. Now the title of this video is about Chicago. How about this? In Illinois, you're an armored car person, you're allowed to have a gun loaded on your body. But that's because armored cars are mostly insured by the federal government. Their clients are either insured by the federal government or heavy corporations. So if you are in Chicago, there are four groups of people in Chicago that can legally carry a gun in the open. Number one, armored car driver that is on duty. Once the armored car driver goes home, he's not allowed to carry a gun anymore because Illinois doesn't issue gun licenses, carry concealed licenses. Okay, so on duty armored guard in Chicago, allowed to carry a gun. Police officer, 24 hours a day, allowed to carry a gun. Retired police officer, 24 hours a day, allowed to carry a gun. Politician's bodyguard, allowed to carry a gun, 24 hours a day. So, if gun control works, then the only people committing shootings in Illinois, in Chicago, are armored guards, police officers, retired police officers, and politicians' bodyguards. That's the only explanation. Unless it might be possible that the people that are shooting people in Chicago are not obeying the anti-concealed carry law. The anti-gun politicians in the bad neighborhoods don't give a shit about them. They go out of their way to take their guns away from them and then demand voting. One more thing I forgot to add on. I said one more. New York City, New York will not give anyone a carry concealed license unless they are politically connected. Who's politically connected? Donald Trump or Joe from the bad neighborhood? Who's politically connected? Mary Kate Olsen's bodyguard or Steve from the bad neighborhood? Also, New York City, long gun license, $120, renew every 3 years. Handgun license, $340, renew every 3 years. Now, somebody lives on Staten Island, they have a 5-bedroom house. Does the $340 fee bother them every 3 years? No. Someone lives in a bad neighborhood, they make $8 an hour, their girlfriend is pregnant. Does the $340 fee every 3 years bother them? Yes. The anti-gun laws bother the poor more than they bother the rich. But that's okay because all their rich friends are okay with their excessive fees, like Donald Trump and Mary Kate Olsen's bodyguard. And the poor have to suffer the most. All the politicians have their bodyguards and their bulletproof limousines. The people that they're sworn to protect do not. These politicians cared about the fucking people, they would have half their bodyguards go in and protect the poor people that voted for them. Thank you.